The Da Vinci Code. Very controversial book and movie for its time. Though I contend, the most controversial thing about this movie, the hair of Tom Hanks. Just, what is that? I'm Durbin, and I'm going to read way too much into The Da Vinci Code. With Inferno being a part of that franchise coming out here real soon, I thought it'd be fun to go back to the first film outing of Robert Langdon and read way too much into The Da Vinci Code. In the book world, it's Angels and Demons that came first, but in the movie world, it's Da Vinci Code that came first. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, and I have to say, I saw this movie right around the time that I was in college when I was a senior. And when I was in college, I was a religion minor. So a lot of the text and those other gospels, like the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, and things like that, I had to read in those religion minor classes. So I remember going through that in that class while that movie was out. And it was interesting because, as far as a treasure hunting movie goes, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to watch them try to put the pieces of the puzzle together and go hunting for the Holy Grail and things like that. So, yeah, from that angle, it was kind of cool. But it's 2.5 hours long. And there is a ton of history lessons in the movie, which I'm not saying aren't uninteresting. I'm just saying it does feel an awful lot like a really long college lecture at certain points in the movie. One of the things that caught my attention, and I'm gonna read it, make sure I kind of get it right here. In the beginning of the movie, Tom Hanks, Robert Langdon, was standing up at the podium giving some kind of lecture, and he talked about sifting truth from belief. And I thought that was a really good line because I think it set up the movie, and that's kind of what the movie was about, was sifting truth from belief as you watch these characters on the big scale of the plot and on the mini scale of their character arcs try to sift truth from belief. And it reminded me of what Jesus said, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So truth is obviously a super important thing. So when I'm watching this movie, it just makes me think this is a huge treasure hunt for identity. This whole movie surrounds the question of identity. And first, it surrounds the question of the identity of Jesus. Was he just a man? Was he the divine Son of God? And it asks that question. And of course, in asking that question, you can't help but ask the other question, what is the identity of the church? What is the true identity of these figures? And then it goes to the character scale, and you got Sophie, who, is playing opposite Robert Langdon in this movie, opposite Tom Hanks. And you have the question of her identity, the question of what are her true parents, the question of what is her grandparent hiding from her. So you have this whole question of her identity and her trying to figure out who she is. Then you got Ian McKellen's character, who I'm so good at this that I already forget his character's name, but he is going about his identity and how his identity is impacted by his belief of the church's identity. So this whole movie to me is a treasure hunt for identity. And I think that the Da Vinci Code sold so much probably partly because it was very controversial. And the movie did so well, probably partly because it was very controversial. But I think because it appeals to something in us, and that something in us is that quest for our identity. All those different things that we as humans go to find our identity in, our work, our jobs, our families, this, that, and the other. In so many ways, we human beings, every single day that we wake up, in some way, shape, or form, are on a quest to figure out who we really are. And I feel like that's kind of the appeal of this movie, because it hits that nerve. So as I'm watching this movie, I'm kind of thinking about that, the identity of Jesus, the identity of the church. And one of the things that really stood out to me was Ian McKellen's character. He so badly wanted to find the direct descendant of Jesus because he believed that this would be proof positive that Jesus was not divine and that he was just a man. And by proving that, it would end, in his words, the reign of the church, the way the church oppressed people, the way the church oppressed science back in the Dark Ages, the way the church oppresses people with religious rules and regulations and things like that. So this is something that Ian McKellen wanted to bring to an end. He wanted to bring oppression to an end. And according to his belief, the church brought a lot of oppression. So that was his quest throughout this movie. That's what just defined his character and his identity, was to find that. What's interesting is when I go back and I look in the Bible and I look at Jesus, the only people that he really ever fought with were the religious people. The religious people who wanted to oppress the common people. The religious people who wanted to take sacred scripture and twist it and put heavy burdens on the people that even the religious leaders themselves didn't want to lift. I mean, Jesus pointed this out to them. They didn't like him for it. So for me, in my personal life, what this movie kind of does for me is it does bring me to that question of the identity of Jesus. Because for me, that is one of the utmost important questions I think that could be asked. And in my personal life, I have found Jesus to be divine, to be the Son of God. And it's interesting because when you look at that, when I believe when you read the Bible and he's man, I mean, he became 100% human. And I believe he died, and I believe 3 days later he came back to life. And I believe that that is a huge deal. Because in accepting and embracing the identity of Jesus as the Son of God, it brings freedom to my life. And you know, I found also personally, just growing up in the church and things like that, you can have church without a personal relationship with Jesus. And to me, that's what I would define as a cold religion. That's what I would define as the oppression. Because when you have religion without relationship, it does become a heavy weight. It does become extremely burdensome because the whole meaning of it is missed. So for a lot of my life, that's kind of was my experience of Jesus. Sometimes what you see is the religious aspect and not so much the relational aspect. But as I got older, I found great authors like C.S. Lewis and reading his writings and great minds like that. It kind of just opened up doors in my mind to see Jesus in a new light and led me to a point of really experiencing Jesus on a personal, relational level over a religious level. And when I experienced Jesus on that level, that has brought freedom to my life. In my life, I'm not going to lie to you, I experience worry. I experience anxiety. Sometimes I feel really bad and guilty over things. And then there's Jesus coming in to say, don't feel guilty. I bore your guilt. Don't be worried or anxious. I love you and I'm going to take care of you. And letting that into my life has illuminated my identity. It's shown me who I can be, who he can make me to be, and that really changes how I look at myself. It helps me to look at myself in a positive light because Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, which means you're supposed to love yourself. And I found that in putting Jesus first in my life and embracing his identity as the Son of God and looking at the world through his eyes, and that includes looking at myself through his eyes, it helps me to see myself like that I'm a child that he loves. And that helps me to truly love other people the way that he does. That doesn't mean I'm perfect at it. Sometimes I think people are jerks and I want to hit them. So yeah, I'm not perfect at that. So there's always this quote from C.S. Lewis from his book, Mere Christianity, that really sticks out to me. Ian McKellen in this movie said that basically Jesus was just a good moral teacher, but he was just a man. And C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity does not like that saying. Here's what he has to say about it. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with the man who says he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman, or something worse. Yeah, so ending on that quote, I know, that's a little heavier than I normally go, but you know what? I felt like, this is one of those movies that asks those serious questions. So I feel like it's one of those movies where we can talk about those serious questions. So you've heard from me. I want to hear from you. So make sure you leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts on the Da Vinci Code. I can't wait to hear from you. While you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be a part of Durbania and the new stuff and new videos and things like that coming out here. And yeah, so make sure you be a part of that. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out this video. Thank you for checking out Durbania. I'm Durbin.